Hi, and welcome back to Purple Color Life. In today's video, I was just up here checking our wood pile to see how the seasoning is coming along. Now, as you can see, I'm in the shade, I'm in the woods. So when I hit this with the moisture meter, it's still pretty green, still too wet to burn this winter. And that was what I was wondering, is if this oak and maple could be burnt this winter. It doesn't look like it. But while we're out here, it got me thinking, this is a lot of firewood that I hauled behind the Polaris Ranger or behind the Ford tractor with the big tool rack on it. And I wanted to tell you the story of my new Kubota RTV1100C. That's the Kubota UTV with the air-cooled and heated cab. Let me tell you the story. Oh, and for $3,000. So I have had some trouble with the Polaris Ranger. Had that differential rebuilt once, and it's still just the all-wheel drive system was not working. If you watch some of the videos we put out last winter, it was hard to get that thing up here to the wood pile. I was doing a lot of spinning. I would use the diff lock in the rear, that worked, but I had no front wheel drive. I already put a couple $1,000s into the Ranger, and I was thinking to myself, I don't really want to spend another $2,000 figuring out what the problem is with that unit and then having, more money into it than what it was worth. So I happened to be on Facebook Marketplace one day and see a Kubota RTV1100C for sale, and it was at a really good price. And I thought, wow, this could be what I'm looking for. Air conditioned and heated cab, much better for the winter time and the summer. It would be the shorter body, so easier to navigate through the woods, power steering. So it kind of checked all the boxes as something I was looking for, and it's the Kubota name. Long-lasting engines, durability, reliability. So I immediately contacted the guy. Now, he was asking $8,500 for it. So I contacted him, had some conversations with him. He said, yeah, he just got it in. And I looked on his Facebook Marketplace profile. He sells a lot of UTVs, so I thought, oh, this must be like a dealership or someone that works at a dealership. So I messaged him back, told him about the trouble I was having with my Ranger, asked him if he would take it on trade, and he said, yeah, absolutely. So we kind of negotiated in between, and it came to the point where he said he'd do $3,000 difference between our Polaris Ranger and his Kubota RTV1100C. So in the video you saw of me doing the long-term review of this Ranger, that was the night I was loading it up in the trailer to take it down and trade it in on the Kubota. As you can see, it's still here, and I'm going to tell you why. So I was pretty excited about, for $3,000 difference, getting an enclosed cab with air conditioning and heat, getting power steering, getting a shorter machine, and getting the Kubota name. So I had this thing loaded up, took it down to see him, had the day off that day. It was a pretty decently long drive. Drove down to where he was with this, got out and looked at the RTV. He had sent me pictures. He told me that there was a hole in the floor from rust. I did some Googling and I saw that on those Kubotas, they do have issues with rust in the floor. Sometimes rust in the bed. So I was able to, once I got there, take a better look at it. And unfortunately, I didn't video any of this because that would be kind of embarrassing to video a machine that you're looking at and ultimately not buy. So even though it was only $3,000 difference, it had some major problems. It looked pretty decent in the pictures, and he was totally upfront and saying it was rusted. So I'm not trying to say he was trying to scam anybody. He was way upfront and said, hey, it's rusted through the floor. There's a hole right through the floor. The bed's got some rust in it. He even sent pictures of those rust spots so that I would see them in advance. What I didn't know until I got there was that the whole undercarriage was rusted. And I got to thinking, you know, it was still a tough decision in my mind at the time. $3,000 cash plus this for a Kubota machine with heat and air conditioning. I still mulled it over for a while, but then common sense got the better of me as I was looking things over. Every bushing was worn out. The rear wheel bearings looked like they were pretty sloppy. Rear tires were worn down to almost nothing. Rust a lot of the way through the tailgate and the bed. And then when you tilt the bed up, which was a power tilt bed, so that was nice, but when you tilt the bed up, the muffler was shot. So all that heat from the diesel engine exhaust was hitting the bed of that Kubota RTV. And I thought, anything I put in that bed, first of all, it's going to get super hot. It's probably downright dangerous, but also it'd be better to get that muffler fixed. So I started adding up in my head, like, it needs new tires, it's going to need all new bushings. I'm not a mechanic, I can't tell all the things it's going to need, but I know that it's been fairly neglected all this time or heavily used. It didn't have a ton of hours on it. I don't remember. I put the screenshot in below of the hours and stuff, but it was a pretty nice looking machine basically from the outside, but once you kind of looked underneath that, you saw there were a lot of problems with it. I was afraid that the entire front suspension would probably need replaced. The back suspension was, you know, a lot of it was rust, and maybe it was just surface rust, but it was starting to worry me how much rust I saw. The tailgate was pretty shot. Like I said, the muffler was gone. That was all going to need replaced. And when I looked underneath it, so I knew about the hole in the floor. When I looked underneath it, the cross members that hold the body onto the frame or the body onto the substructure of the UTV, they were all rusted. And I got to adding up in my head and thinking, this is going to take a lot of money to get it fixed back up. And I've already put $2,000 into this Ranger. I know the suspension's all good on it. The differential's been rebuilt. It only has low hours and low miles on it. So I started to think, I'm trading in something that, even though the all-wheel drive doesn't work, the rest of it's in pretty good shape. It's got a plastic floor that's never going to rust through. It's got a plastic bed that's never going to rust through. And I just, you know, like I said, common sense got the better of me there, and I was like, no, I'm not going to make this deal. So I told him thank you, appreciated him letting me look at it, told him the issue was it was just too rusted through. I pointed out, you know, the undercarriage, how rusted everything was there, and it would be a big investment for me beyond the $3,000 cash plus my unit to get things fixed up just to haul firewood through the woods. The other thing I was thinking on my drive home is, how much time do I actually spend in the cab of the UTV? Not that much. So the property manager at the office building I work at near Pittsburgh has a couple of those Kubotas, and he's in them all the time, winter and summer. Makes sense because he's driving between buildings. It's nice for him to have that air conditioning and heat. Me, I'm driving from point A to point B just to haul firewood and unload it, or cut firewood and load it. There's very rarely times that I'm just sitting here in the cab to actually enjoy that heat or air conditioning. So even though it was exciting to think about a Kubota with heat and air, I'm glad I made the decision not to trade this in on it. And what I actually did, I had rented that trailer, but what I actually did was hauled this while it was on the trailer to another repair shop and said, give me an estimate on what it's going to take to get this thing all-wheel drive working, check it all over, make sure it's going to last me another 5 to 10 years. This is a pretty new shop. This guy has this business, will be his retirement business when he retires from his full-time job. And he did a great job, figured out the differential in the all-wheel drive problem, replaced a yoke, replaced some bearings. He said, this is a beautiful machine. You've taken really good care of it. It's low hours. It should last you a long time. So we were really glad that we took it there. You can see I've got it back now. Haven't had a chance to try that all-wheel drive, but I assume it's going to work. Another $1,000 into it. Jennifer and I were joking about the dad dude videos. He's like, oh, about $1,000. Whenever he gets a boat or a camper, his little funny catchphrase is everything's about $1,000 to get it fixed. So another $1,000 into the Ranger, but the guy did a great job. His name's Tim. I'll put the information about his business down below in the description. If you're in the Northwest Pennsylvania area, I highly recommend you give it a try. He does motorcycle inspections, motorcycle repairs, UTVs, all kinds of off-road equipment. And like I said, he did a great job. But wanted to share with you that story of how for $3,000 I passed on a Kubota RTV1100C with heated cab, cooled cab, tilt dump bed, power tilt, power steering. It just wasn't the right buy for me. Hopefully, that guy only had it for another day and it was sold. So somebody bought it. $8,500 is pretty cheap for a Kubota RTV machine, and maybe someone bought it that's going to fix it up, or maybe someone bought it that's going to just drive it until it's dead. But for me, it looked like it was going to need way too much work for me to be satisfied with it and to be confident hauling firewood and around the property here. Hopefully that story was entertaining and informative. If so, please give us a big thumbs up down below. You'll see lots more of the Ranger here, because now that we've spent $3,000 on fixing it up, it's probably the point where we put more money into it than what it's worth. But to me, it's worth a lot more than trying to go out and buy a new one, because the prices of something new are crazy. I know everything that's been done to this machine is going to last us a long time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again the next time. Power steering would definitely be nice, and a shorter body. But like I said, with all those new parts, this is a keeper.